16-year-old Emma was just another passenger in 11F until radio failure left their plane defenseless. When F-22 escorts started using tactical hand signals, she became their lifeline, translating military communications that saved 150 lives. Only then did the pilots learn her father's call sign, the legendary Viper. Heritage runs deeper than blood. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. 16-year-old Emma Viper Callahan adjusted her headphones and tried to ignore the curious stares from other passengers on United Flight 2156. To everyone around her, she was just another teenager traveling alone. Backpack full of textbooks, worn sneakers, and the slightly awkward confidence that came with being caught between childhood and adulthood. What they couldn't see was the weight she carried in her heart. 3 months ago, her father, Lieutenant Colonel Jack Maverick Callahan, had been killed in action during a classified mission over the Pacific. The F-18 Super Hornet pilot and Top Gun instructor had been her entire world, and now she was flying to Nevada to live with her aunt, the only family she had left. Emma pulled her father's dog tags from beneath her shirt, running her thumb over the worn metal. Along with his tags, she wore something even more precious. His original call sign patch from his first squadron, faded and frayed from years of wear. Maverick had been retired when he became an instructor, but Emma had kept it as her most treasured possession. The flight from San Diego to Reno should have been routine. Emma had made this trip dozens of times to visit her Aunt Sarah, a civilian contractor who worked with various military installations in Nevada. But today felt different. Today everything felt final. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our initial descent into Reno Tahoe International Airport, announced the captain. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for landing. Emma looked out the window at the Nevada desert below, trying not to think about how her father would never see another sunrise, never fly another mission, never be there to teach her how to drive or walk her down the aisle someday. That's when she heard it, a sound that made every muscle in her body tense. The unmistakable roar of military jet engines, close and getting closer. Through her window, Emma saw something that made her heart skip. 2 F-22 Raptors flying in perfect formation alongside their commercial airliner. The stealth fighters were close enough that she could see the pilots in their cockpits, their helmets turning to observe the passenger aircraft. Other passengers were pointing and taking photos, excited by the rare sight of America's most advanced fighter jets. But Emma knew this wasn't a coincidence or a training exercise. Military aircraft didn't just casually fly alongside civilian flights without reason. Something was wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Martinez, came the strained voice over the intercom. We're experiencing some communication difficulties with air traffic control. As a precaution, we've been assigned a military escort to guide us to the airport. Communication difficulties. Emma's father had taught her enough about aviation to know that was code for something much more serious. She pressed her face to the window, studying the lead F-22. The pilot was gesturing toward the airliner's cockpit, hand signals that Emma recognized from countless hours spent on military bases, watching her father and his squadron mates communicate. The lead Raptor was signaling that the airliner's radio was completely dead. Emma felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the same feeling she'd gotten as a child when her father would let her sit in the cockpit of his F-18 and explain the instruments. She'd grown up around military aviation, absorbing knowledge about radios, emergency procedures, and aircraft systems like other kids learned about sports or video games. Without thinking, Emma unbuckled her seatbelt and walked toward the front of the aircraft. A flight attendant immediately approached her. "Miss, please return to your seat. We're preparing for landing." "I need to speak with the captain," Emma said, her voice carrying an authority that seemed strange coming from someone so young. "I know what those F-22s are trying to tell us. Sweetie, the pilots know what they're doing. Please go back to..." "Ma'am, my father was Lieutenant Colonel Jack Callahan, call sign Maverick, F-18 pilot and Top Gun instructor. I've been around military aviation my entire life. Those fighters are using emergency hand signals because our radio is dead, and they're trying to guide us to a safe landing." The flight attendant paused, studying Emma's serious expression and the military dog tags visible around her neck. Something in the girl's tone made her reconsider. "Let me talk to the captain." 2 minutes later, Emma found herself in the cockpit of the Boeing 737, looking at instruments she understood better than most adults. Captain Martinez and his co-pilot, First Officer Chin, were frantically working through emergency checklists while trying to interpret the hand signals from the F-22s. "Captain, I'm Emma Callahan. My father was a Navy pilot. I can translate what the F-22s are trying to tell you. Captain Martinez looked skeptical until he saw the dog tags and the faded Top Gun patch on Emma's backpack. Your father was military? Lieutenant Colonel Jack Callahan, killed in action 3 months ago. He taught me to read tactical hand signals when I was 8 years old. The lead F-22 pilot was making a series of gestures toward the airliner's wing. Emma watched carefully, her mind automatically translating the signals. He's saying you have a fuel leak from your port wing, Emma said. He's indicating it's significant, you're leaving a vapor trail that's visible from outside. Captain Martinez checked his fuel gauges and went pale. She's right. We're losing fuel faster than our instruments showed. How did you? The F-22 pilot is also signaling that Reno Airport is currently closed due to an emergency, probably related to our situation. He's indicating we need to divert to a military installation. First Officer Chen looked at Emma with amazement. You can read all that from hand signals? It's a language just like any other. My father made sure I learned it. Emma watched as the lead Raptor pilot made another series of gestures. He's asking if we can maintain current altitude and follow them to Nellis Air Force Base, about 60 miles southeast of here. Captain Martinez made the decision quickly. Can you keep translating for us? Yes, sir. For the next 20 minutes, Emma became the vital link between the civilian airliner and its military escorts. She translated complex navigational instructions, emergency procedures, and critical information about the aircraft's condition, all through hand signals passed between fighter pilots and a 16-year-old girl who'd learned the language at her father's knee. The lead pilot is signaling that Nellis has scrambled their emergency response team, Emma reported. Full crash crew, medical personnel, and fuel trucks are standing by. As they approached Nellis Air Force Base, Emma could see the massive installation sprawling across the Nevada desert. The same base where her father had done advanced training early in his career, where some of the best pilots in the world learned to push the boundaries of what was possible in the sky. He's giving us final approach instructions, Emma said, watching the F-22 pilot signals. Runway 21 left, winds calm, cleared to land. The landing was smooth despite the fuel leak, and as soon as the wheels touched down, Emma could see emergency vehicles surrounding them. The two F-22s performed a victory roll overhead, a gesture of respect that brought tears to her eyes. As passengers began to deplane, Emma gathered her things and prepared to face whatever came next. Her connection flight to see her aunt would have to wait, but that seemed insignificant compared to what had just happened. That's when she heard her name being called over the aircraft's PA system. Emma Callahan, please remain seated. You have visitors. Confused, Emma looked out the window to see a group of military personnel approaching the aircraft. At their head was a man in Air Force dress blues with the eagles of a full colonel on his shoulders. Colonel James Harrison boarded the aircraft and walked directly to Emma's seat. Miss Callahan? Yes, sir. I'm Colonel Harrison, base commander at Nellis. The F-22 pilots who escorted you and told me about your assistance during the emergency. I understand you translated tactical hand signals for the flight crew. Yes, sir. My father taught me. Colonel Harrison's expression softened. Lieutenant Colonel Jack Callahan. I knew your father, Emma. He was one of the finest pilots I ever served with. Emma felt her throat tighten. You knew him? Jack and I went through flight training together 22 years ago. He saved my life during a training accident in 2003. Colonel Harrison paused. I was at his memorial service, Emma. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you, sir. Emma, the pilots who escorted you today are some of the best in the Air Force. Captain Mitchell and Captain Rodriguez have over 400 combat hours between them. They told me they've never seen a civilian, especially someone your age, demonstrate such knowledge of military aviation procedures. My dad wanted me to understand his world. He did more than that. He gave you skills that saved lives today. If you hadn't been able to translate those hand signals, Captain Martinez would have had to guess what the F-22s were trying to communicate. In an emergency situation with fuel leaking, those few minutes of clear communication were crucial. Other passengers had finished deplaning, but Emma remained in her seat, trying to process what Colonel Harrison was telling her. Emma, I'd like you to meet someone. Colonel Harrison stepped aside and two pilots in flight suits walked down the aisle. Emma recognized them immediately as the F-22 pilots who had escorted their aircraft. She could see their call signs embroidered on their name patches, Viper and Ghost. Captain Sarah Viper Mitchell removed her helmet and extended her hand to Emma. Miss Callahan, it's an honor to meet you. Emma shook the pilot's hand, noticing the firm grip and direct gaze that marked career military officers. "Thank you for getting us down safely, ma'am." "We couldn't have done it without you," Captain Rodriguez added. "Your translation of our signals was flawless." "Where did you learn tactical hand signals?" "My father taught me when I was little. He said it was important to understand how pilots communicate when radios fail." Captain Mitchell studied Emma's face. "You said your call sign was Viper?" Emma looked confused. "Ma'am, I don't have a call sign. I'm not military." "The patch on your backpack," Captain Rodriguez pointed out. "It says, Viper." Emma looked down at her backpack where her father's old squadron patch was visible. That was my father's original call sign before he became Maverick. I wear it to remember him." The two F-22 pilots exchanged glances. Captain Mitchell spoke first. "Emma, your father's original call sign was Viper?" "Yes, ma'am. From his first squadron assignment on the USS Roosevelt. He told me he earned it because he could strike fast and accurate like a Viper. But when he transferred to Top Gun as an instructor, he became Maverick." Captain Mitchell's face had gone pale. "Emma, what was your father's full name and rank?" "Lieutenant Colonel Jack Thomas Callahan, United States Navy." "And he was killed in action 3 months ago?" "Yes, ma'am. March 15th, over the Pacific during a classified mission." Captain Mitchell sat down in the seat across from Emma, her expression a mixture of amazement and reverence. "Emma, your father didn't just earn the call sign Viper because he was fast and accurate." "What do you mean?" 12 years ago, I was a young lieutenant on my first combat deployment. My F/A-18 was hit by surface-to-air missile over hostile territory. I was going down and enemy fighters were moving in to finish me off." Emma listened intently as Captain Mitchell continued. "A Navy pilot appeared out of nowhere, engaged 3 enemy aircraft simultaneously, and shot down 2 of them while driving off the third. He stayed with me until rescue arrived, even though he was low on fuel and deep in enemy airspace." "My dad. Your father. His call sign then was Viper and he flew like his name, lightning fast, deadly accurate and absolutely fearless. He saved my life that day, Emma. I transferred to the Air Force 2 years later but I never forgot what he did." Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. Her father had never told her about specific combat missions. Most of his deployments were classified. "There's more," Captain Rodriguez added. "The call sign Viper is legendary in military aviation circles. Your father's combat record, his kill count, his precision under pressure. Pilots still study his tactics at flight schools across all branches of service." "I didn't know," Emma whispered. Colonel Harrison leaned forward. "Emma, when Captain Mitchell radioed that a young person with the call sign Viper had helped translate their emergency signals, every pilot on this base stopped what they were doing. Your father's reputation preceded him everywhere he went. But I'm not a pilot. I don't have a call sign." "Today you proved that call signs aren't just about flying aircraft," Captain Mitchell said. "They're about courage, skill, and the ability to perform under pressure when lives depend on you. Today you were Viper." Emma looked around at the military officers surrounding her, trying to understand what they were telling her. "Emma," Colonel Harrison said gently, "your father's legacy isn't just about the missions he flew or the lives he saved in combat. It's about the values he passed on to you, the knowledge, the courage, and the instinct to help others when they need it most." "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now you continue to Nevada to live with your aunt as planned. But Emma, I want you to know that you'll always be welcome at Nellis Air Force Base. Your father's memory is honored here and after today so are you." Captain Mitchell stood and came to attention. "Miss Callahan, on behalf of the United States Air Force, thank you for your service today." To Emma's amazement, both F-22 pilots saluted her, a gesture of respect usually reserved for military personnel. Around the aircraft, she could see ground crew and emergency personnel who had witnessed the exchange also coming to attention. An hour later, Emma was in Colonel Harrison's staff car, being driven to a small ceremony that had been hastily arranged in her honor. Word had spread quickly around the base about the young woman who had inherited her father's call sign and used his training to help save lives. The base auditorium was packed with pilots, aircrew, and support personnel. As Emma walked to the podium, she saw hundreds of people who had come to honor both her and her father's memory. "Ladies and gentlemen," Colonel Harrison announced, "I present Emma Viper Callahan, daughter of Lieutenant Colonel Jack Maverick Callahan, and today, a hero in her own right." The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Emma looked out at the sea of uniforms, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Army, all standing to honor a 16-year-old girl who had simply used what her father had taught her. When the applause finally died down, Emma stepped to the microphone. "My father always told me that being a pilot wasn't about the aircraft you flew or the missions you completed. He said it was about being ready to serve when people needed you most, whether you were in the cockpit of an F/A-18 or sitting in seat 11F of a commercial airliner." She paused, looking out at the audience. "Today, I learned that the lessons he taught me weren't just about aviation or military procedures. They were about courage, responsibility, and the willingness to use whatever skills you have to help others." Emma touched the dog tags at her throat. "My father can't be here today, but I know he would be proud to see how his fellow pilots took care of a scared kid who just wanted to help. The call sign Viper doesn't belong to me, it belongs to everyone who chooses to serve, to protect, and to put others before themselves." After the ceremony, Emma was approached by dozens of pilots and aircrew who wanted to share stories about her father, to tell her how his reputation had inspired them, and to welcome her into the extended military family that she'd never realized she belonged to. Captain Mitchell found her as the crowd was dispersing. "Emma, I have something for you." She handed Emma a flight suit with Viper embroidered on the name patch. "This doesn't make you a pilot," Captain Mitchell explained, "but it makes you part of the squadron. Anytime you're at a military installation, your family." Emma held the flight suit, feeling its weight and significance. "Captain, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you think my father would have been proud of what I did today?" Captain Mitchell smiled. "Emma, your father spent his entire career training pilots, teaching them to think clearly under pressure and to use their skills to protect others. Today you proved that his most important student was his own daughter." That evening, Emma called her Aunt Sarah from the base guest quarters where she'd been invited to stay the night. "Emma? I've been worried sick. Your flight landed hours ago, but—" "Aunt Sarah, I'm okay. But I have a story to tell you." After explaining the day's events, Emma heard her aunt crying softly on the other end of the line. "Your father would have been so proud," Sarah said. "He always said you had the heart of a pilot even if you never wanted to fly. I think I understand now what he meant. It's not about the aircraft, it's about being willing to serve." The next morning, Emma's story had spread beyond Nellis Air Force Base. Military news outlets were reporting on the teenage hero who inherited her father's call sign, and social media was buzzing with videos of her ceremony and speech. But Emma was focused on something else entirely. "Colonel Harrison," she said as he prepared to drive her to the civilian airport to catch her rescheduled flight, "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday, and I want to ask you something." "What's that, Emma? How do I apply to the Air Force Academy?" Colonel Harrison smiled. "I think I can help you with that. But Emma, you're only 16. You have 2 more years of high school." "I know. But yesterday showed me that I want to serve just like my father did. I want to earn my call sign the right way." "Your call sign?" Emma touched the Viper patch on her new flight suit. "This one belongs to my father's memory. When I become a pilot, I want to earn my own." 4 years later, Second Lieutenant Emma Callahan graduated from the Air Force Academy with honors and immediately entered pilot training. Her instructors noted her exceptional ability to remain calm under pressure and her intuitive understanding of emergency procedures. She earned her wings 18 months later, flying F-22 Raptors with a precision and skill that reminded veteran pilots of a legendary Navy pilot named Viper. Her new call sign, chosen by her squadron mates after a training exercise where she successfully coordinated a complex rescue operation, was Phoenix, because like the mythical bird, she had risen from the ashes of personal tragedy to soar higher than anyone thought possible. But in her quarters, she still kept her father's original Viper patch, along with the dog tags that had started it all. And sometimes, late at night, she would hold them and remember the day when a scared 16-year-old girl in seat 11F had discovered that heroism isn't about age or rank. It's about being ready to serve when people need you most. The F-22 pilots hadn't stood at attention because of her call sign. They had stood at attention because of her heart.